Hi, I'm Matthew Buzzy with PC Mag, and I'm here with a slew of new Microsoft products just announced, all Surface devices, the largest of which is the long-awaited update to the Surface Studio desktop. Looks like a normal desktop, very iMac inspired if you've ever seen this before. There's been two iterations. This is the 2 Plus, an update to the 2, not going as far as to name it the 3, which we'll get into why, because it's really mostly a components-based update. But the big thing about this desktop, in addition to the large screen size, if you've never seen it, is this reclining feature. This was the big surprise when it was first debuted, and it's useful for a variety of reasons, right? Because this is the touch display, unlike an iMac. So that adds kind of an art easel, stylus pen element. You can recline it, you can use the compatible Surface Pen. This is a giant touchscreen, a canvas, and this kind of replicates, obviously you have to be some sort of digital designer to really make use of this, but otherwise it just looks really cool and it's fun to play with. Of course, fun to play with isn't quite enough of a reason to pay $4,300, which is the cost of the Surface Studio 2 Plus. So it's a premium product, much like an iMac. This is for a high-end user who has reasons to get this display this big, with the high resolution and the reclining display. I don't think the average user necessarily needs something like this. Now, what goes into the 2 Plus portion? Not a 3, but an upgrade over the 2. The previous model gotten a little long in the tooth as far as components. Even when it came out, it was a little bit underpowered, people thought, for a desktop. I know in my review that was one of my cons. And this has now been upgraded not to Intel's latest 12th gen, but 11th gen Core H series. That's crucial because the H series, I believe it's the H35, provides a good amount more power than the previous CPU rather, that was inside, which I think was a laptop grade CPU. So in a system this big, that was a little lacking. The other big addition is RTX 3060 graphics, which anyone out there who follows GPUs closely will know that's a pretty decent GPU to get in a system like this. All the components really are in this base, which is also why the design hasn't really changed. It's an upgrade. I think maybe if the base was going to get bigger, maybe thermal constraints, 12th gen Intel could have happened. But as it stands, to get this into production without a major design change, they're going with 11th gen and RTX 3060. So that GPU upgrade in particular, really appealing to anyone with graphics-based workloads. The RTX 3060, in addition to being a very competent gaming GPU, probably not what you're mainly going to use it for on this display, but is a overall powerful, not super high-end, and it's not NVIDIA's professional line. It's sort of the entry level to the RTX higher end graphics. So powerful, but not the top of the line, but a massive upgrade over what was in previously. And it should be able to boost any sort of graphics-based workflow pretty significantly. So the components may be a little underwhelming if you're hoping for something newer, or I know 40 series is on the horizon. Obviously the giant 40 series cards that were announced are not going to fit in this, and the mobile versions aren't out yet, so that's not really an option here. But as it stands, a 3060 still represents a pretty significant graphics upgrade over the existing option. I understand if that's a little maybe underwhelming, or if you want a design change, the big bezels. That's why they've sort of gone with the 2 Plus and not going as far as calling it a 3. I appreciate them not calling it a 3 when it is really more of an iterative performance upgrade. At the same time, it's been years since this has been updated, and I think people maybe in their minds are building up when this finally got updated, we get a bit more of a boost than that. That said, if you mainly want the performance, if you like this product, or you eyed it, or you thought you needed better performance, they finally did deliver that. One more addition for designers and anyone who's transferring data back and forth a lot: the USB-C ports in the rear, everything's in the rear, which is also a little inaccessible, but you know, it makes sense, the unblemished look. The Thunderbolt, the USB-C ports in the rear are now Thunderbolt 4 equipped. So that's an advantage of the 11th gen processor. Now the faster throughput, there's an Ethernet port back there, and you get the advantages of Thunderbolt 4. So all told, it's kind of an iterative upgrade. That's the 2 Plus. They're acknowledging that, I think, even in the product name. 11th gen H series and RTX 3060 are the big draws. Again, $4,300 for the model. I think you can add a couple $100 extra to add the keyboard, pen, and mouse as a package. So stay tuned for a full review, and thanks for tuning in.